We write books. We rule. Good morning. My name is Chris Fox, and today we're talking about marketing my fantasy. I have been a fantasy author for almost a year now. I launched my first fantasy novel, Epic Fantasy, on August 1st of 2021, Shattered Gods. This has been like a childhood dream. I really can't even talk about how awesome this is. I've wanted to do this my whole life. These books are coming out now. I have 10 total planned, and I have had them planned for forever and ever and ever. So to see it coming to fruition is really cool. Anyway, I noticed in the comments on my last video, the number one thing I heard from people was, hey, if you could tell us more about how things are going in fantasy, we'd really appreciate it because it sucks and we can't sell any books. It's a really, really difficult genre to break into, much more so than, say, military science fiction. If you were the new kid on the block in military science fiction and you step up and you drop a 60,000 word book, you can get some good traction if you get the right cover art, a good description, and a relatable, protagonist with a good, recognizable story. I mean, it's amazing how easy that was for me to do. When I wrote Destroyer, if you guys remember, that was how this channel kicked off like 840,000 years ago, where I did the 21-day novel challenge, and that 21-day novel challenge produced a pretty good book, but nothing that was researched. It was very archetypal, somewhat generic in its setting and characters. I mean, it was fun and I loved it. I thought it was great, but it wasn't what it could have been if I had spent like years creating that setting in the way that I have for Shattered Gods. And that's more of what I think fantasy fans expect. They want to lose themselves in a massive universe, one that is enticing in its possibilities. So they constantly think about what could the magic do, and what were the gods like, and what is this ancient civilization that was only mentioned twice like, what were they like, what was their magic like. As long as you keep raising questions and opening loops in the reader's mind, they get excited. But that's assuming they're willing to sit down and read it in the first place, which is enormously challenging. So what I do is I try to present bits of wonder, things that are interesting to them. And I'm using catching and receiving ads. So on Facebook, I'm using catching ads. So maybe you'll see a picture of Zal and Lee playing Chem Hedge, my magical sport in my world. So maybe they're playing that game. This one is very popular because it's world building. It's interesting world building they haven't seen before. What is this game they're playing? They have magic. What's going on here? So I get a lot of clicks on there, and it tells them a little bit about the world. And enough that they might be more interested and want to know more. The goal really is just to pick their interest. I don't expect somebody to click on a Facebook ad and immediately buy something, although fortunately that happens fairly often. So somebody clicks on a Facebook ad and it takes them to my product page for Shattered Gods, or my series page possibly, depending on the way the ad is structured. And they're going to see what that book's about. They're going to look at the cost, and they're going to look at the description. They might decide to buy it, but the first book in the series is $5. That's a big ask. Very few people are willing to just plunk down 5 books on a series they've never heard of, because so many series are bad. They're just bad, and we know this. You want some epic series that is going to involve you for like 2 years. I mean, if you're me. That's what I want. When I got into the Wheel of Time, I wanted to lose myself endlessly in this setting, and I was forever thinking about the Aes Sedai and what their powers were and their history, and I loved this world. It was so, so intriguing. That's what people want, but it's such a risk for them to jump in, so you kind of have to chip away. So I use a variety of different pieces of artwork. I give away free short stories. I have several now in the universe. So I've got, I think, 3 out at present for Shattered Gods, and then several for the Magitech Chronicles. So I can give them a little more enticement to try to get them interested. And they still might not be interested, but maybe they signed up to my mailing list because they saw an ad that gave them 5 free short stories. And so then they're on my autoresponder sequence, which is a huge way that I sell books. And so for the next 2 weeks, they're getting peppered with emails about each of my various series, including Epic Fantasy. And they're seeing maps, like the map of the world and more of the world building. And they can check out my World Anvil page, and people get to see there's an RPG. So you're just trying to show them, hey, this is like Warhammer 40K. I have this deep, rich universe. And the more you do that, the more likely they are to buy it and read it. And if you can keep that going, then when that person finally kind of crumbles and says, okay, I'm going to give this book a try, if they like what they read, they're going to tell their friends. And you've created another little island. So that one sale might lead to 5 more sales over the course of 6 months as they go to their D&D sessions and tell their friends, hey, I checked out this new series and I really enjoy it. So that's how a lot of it goes for me. I work hard on advertising. Sales are difficult for me to get, and usually it's break even. Sometimes I even lose money. My whole goal is to spend the entire amount of money that I make on Shattered Gods, the first book, on advertising the series. So I never want to make a profit there. I always want to be kind of a little bit on the hole on book one, and 100% of that is reinvested in advertising. Most successful on the catching ads have been Facebook. I've tried things like Reddit and a few other things. I haven't really played around with TikTok yet. I'd like to think about that, but it's just, I don't have the bandwidth for it yet. So Instagram and Facebook are where it's happening, which is great. I get people interested that way. Then I have receiving ads, and those are on Amazon itself. So when they show up, they're much, much more likely to actually see my books. I mean, it's really become a labyrinth at Amazon. You have to wade through like 9 things that are unrelated to what you're searching for before you actually see that product. So you want to make sure that there's a high likelihood they're seeing you up top there. And then I get it as a cheap click. So, it might cost me 16 cents to have my ad appear at the top of the page and they click on it, as opposed to scrolling down and trying to find the product. But I'm much more likely to have intercepted that click and not had them see some cooler series that led them away, and instead they jump into, a Lindsay Buroker series. I want to make sure that they're checking out my stuff. And the 2 ads working in tandem really work well for me. So we'll jump into the second half of the video. We're going to take a look at my screen, and we're going to see sort of what I've done for advertising. I'll show you a spreadsheet. Then we'll look a little bit at my Facebook ads and a little bit at my Amazon ads, so you can see sort of my catch and release setup. And I'm not going to get too much into, headlines on ads or images used. I want you to see it's going to be more about having them on both sides, basically. I found that when I just advertise heavily on Amazon, it's not terribly successful. I just can't do it profitably. If I just advertise on Facebook, I do okay, but I saturate the market really quickly, and it's difficult for me to scale upwards on ad spend. But if I'm kind of hitting Facebook pretty hard and cleverly making use of ads on Amazon, then I tend to do pretty well. So anyway, we'll take a look at that. Let's go ahead and jump in. Okay, so we are looking at the costs that are associated with Shattered Gods. So this is really relevant information before we jump in and look at anything about ads. You can see I'm living up to my goal here, which is that I want to spend all of the money that I make on Shattered Gods. Let me zoom in a little more and see if we can make this bigger. There we go. So you can see I'm $1,000 in the hole on book 1. That's perfect. That's exactly what I want. Internally, because some of that money was paid to my wife for editing and typography, we're still technically in profit on that book. But I want to keep it always down there. So if that starts turning green, it means that I have play money and I can start throwing it at ads. But all the rest of that I want to turn green. So this should be the only red, and then all the rest of this all the way down should be green. And the reason why I came in here is not just to show kind of, costs and where I'm at and the series as a whole, but more specifically to get to these numbers. So this $16.81 is what I make today if somebody buys their way through to iDemon, the 4th book that I'm polishing up. These are the page reads. This is the sale. So I'm making, let's just say $16 on average. That means that I have $16 to play with for a complete sale today. So if it costs me $10 to get somebody into the series, and let's say 70% of people are continuing on, that's a little bit of profit. So that's better than break even though I'm paying $10 to get somebody into the series. So you can see it's much easier for me to advertise because I have that deep pool of profit. That was hard initially when it was just one book, and I knew I was going to lose a lot of money, and did. But as I added sequels, it's gotten easier and easier and easier. So anyway, let's take a look at some of the ad stuff. We are going to go first to the Facebook ads. Let's jump over to Facebook. As you can see, I have 2 Shattered Gods ads running currently, one of them in the United States, one of them in the UK, because those are currently the most profitable markets for me. You can see my cost per clicks are pretty good, 18 cents for the United States and 21 for the UK. Those were much, much better, much better, but I've been running these for months, and so they're kind of gradually creeping up. You can also see I've got a few other ads. This one is for a space opera series for a buddy of mine, Trevor. This one is for another space opera series for a buddy of mine, Chris, and they get similar clicks even though they're at different audiences. So all I really care about is my cost per click and my total reach. How many people are seeing this? How many people are looking at these ads? Because the goal here is not to make a sale. I love sales. Sales make me very happy, and I do get them from these ads. But I know that someone who sees an ad, looks at a map of my fantasy world or a piece of artwork of my characters playing Chem Hedge, one of the games in my world, that might intrigue them, but it's not necessarily going to get them to bite. It's a huge ask to get somebody to sink their teeth into a fantasy series because they're going to have to be reading for months and months and months. So you want to make sure that's a really good series that's worth your time. So I'm sort of just exposing them with these two ads, what I call catching ads. Then I've got receiving ads, so I'm not sure that makes any sense, on Amazon. And I sort it by just Shattered Gods. Let's go ahead and blow this up in size a little bit. You can see all I really care about, again, is clicks. In Amazon, theoretically, you can see how many sales and page reach you get, but these are just theoretical numbers. I've experimented with turning the ads off entirely, running them at different budgets, and what I have found is you get more for your buck than what you see here. I definitely get more sales, and I definitely get more page reads than it gives me credit for. So what I'm looking at are total numbers on a given day, not what this console tells me. What I care most about are impressions again and clicks. Like how many people are seeing this? Are my ads in the right place? When I search for Shattered Gods, is my competition popping up or am I popping up? I just want to make sure it's me that's popping up. If you look at like how much have I spent for this month? So I've spent about $255 this month. We're 2/3 of the way through the month in July so far. So I'll probably spend about $400 by the end of it in ads. So contrast that to what Fantasy as your genre is making. I'm earning I'm going to say $4,000 to $5,000 a month, and then 10 to 12 on a release month. That's way better ratios than I've ever had for anything in my career. I'm just not spending that much on advertising. And if there were, I guess, a secret to it I would give, it's that I'm trying to find the markets that are most profitable for me. So I've tried, Germany and the UK and Australia and Canada and, Spain. And you try them and you see where your books are getting traction. And it may surprise you some areas of the world, but the areas where it's not getting traction, I'm not trying to blow a bunch of money. So, for example, I turned off my ads in Canada entirely. I just wasn't making any money there. The other ones, I have different trace amounts. There's no market that's making a huge amount of money outside the United States, except for maybe the UK. But all of them I love having, and the combined total of all those markets is definitely inflating my income. Anyway, that gives you, some idea of what I'm doing with my ads. It's hard for me to know exactly what else to show you. I'll give you one more peek at this sheet. I cannot wait until I get to a point where I have the page reads all the way through book 10 and I'm starting to, add some side novels, and I'll get to a point where somebody who buys their way into the series is going to be paying me $40 to $50. Then I can spend $20 to advertise a sale and still do it profitably, and that just gets nuts. Then I could really start, raising my ad spending and going nuts. Anyway, that's enough about advertising and marketing. We can talk more about that in the comments. I welcome questions, but for the future, I am going to be running a book funnel and a story origin giveaway for fantasy authors, so I'll get those up soon, and I figured anybody watching this, if you're interested in joining, my only requirement is that you're interested, and we'll see what we can do on those sites, and then we'll report back, and I'll do a video that shows how well our giveaways do, so that we know, is it still possible for us to get fantasy readers, and are we selling books as a result? This is near and dear to my heart. I definitely want to start expanding my footprint with fantasy, so you are welcome to join me in that journey if you would like. Anyway, I'm going to get back to the editing. I need to work on iDemon, and I will talk to you guys soon.